President Trump recently signed an executive order that sets a 30-day deadline for drug makers to lower the cost of prescription drugs in the U.S. If the deadline isn't met, drug prices here will be tied to lower prices paid by other countries. Joining us now is Dr. Swapna Reddy, Assistant Dean of ASU's College of Health Solutions. Good to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Did I get this? This is kind of confusing. Did I get that right?
More or less. We received an executive order last week by President Trump, and basically what he stated is that he wants the United States to join in the most favored nation status for drug pricing in the world. Seems like a laudable goal. And the way to do it, according to the executive order, is that he directed drug makers to reduce all of their non-generic prices of drugs to match those of the same drug prices in peer nations, so other developed nations. And basically said in the next 30 days, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Kennedy, would set targets for those prices, and then the pharmaceutical companies would need to voluntarily meet those prices, and if not, there might be some repercussions.
Repercussions like federal investigations.
You got it. Federal investigations, maybe direct-to-consumer sales, importing drugs, etc. Not a lot of clear directives on what those repercussions would be, and not really a clear timeline either.
Drug makers say that if this affects profits, this affects R&D, research and development. Have they got a point?
Well, so drug makers have been saying that for a long time in the United States, that one of the reasons why our prices are so high is that those prices help to subsidize all of the research and development that takes place in the United States. Now, the more recent evidence, as in the last 15 to 20 years, doesn't necessarily support our steep climb in drug prices to the cost of R&D, but definitely that is their position, and they will likely hold on to that position all the way to court.
Does it give foreign governments, though, the upper hand in terms of medical costs here in the U.S.?
So that's a really important point. I mean, when you look at who those peer countries are that we're talking about places like France, we're talking about the UK, we're talking about Canada, et cetera. So what do all of those countries and their health systems have in common is they all have some form of socialized or nationalized healthcare. All of those countries directly negotiate their drug prices, or they set drug price caps, right? They closely control the costs of medication. So drug prices are not like a book in a shelf and we can decide to pick that out of the shelf and say we want to do it just like that. It's part of a larger healthcare system, right?
Yes.
And so those countries, certainly whatever those prices are, our pharmaceutical companies could pull out of those countries, would certainly not control the costs there. And we're completely dependent on what those countries say the costs of those medications are.
Where does Medicare and, as it stands, Medicaid fit into all this?
So that's another interesting point in this, right? Because in the executive order, it never said who does this apply to, which system does this apply to. Our U.S. healthcare system is a bunch of systems cobbled together. Are we talking about Medicare, Medicaid? Are we talking about the privately insured? Are we talking about the underinsured, the uninsured? Who are we talking about? And the federal government can negotiate drug prices with Medicare, which, by the way, we only started doing during the Biden administration. That's a very recent act.
Yes.
We generally don't have the ability to do that with private pharmaceutical companies. That really needs to be something that Congress does.
Well, but again, these private insurance companies, what do we expect to see from them? How are they going to respond?
Well, they haven't responded particularly favorably about the executive order. We're not seeing a whole rush to voluntarily reduce their prices. We don't know because we don't have a lot of information on what time they're supposed to be responding, what that response is supposed to look like. So TBD on that one. But what all the experts are largely saying is expect to see lots of litigation and lots of pushback in the courts.
And how long does something like that could take quite a while?
Take years and years.
Yes.
Right? Even the implementation of this best case scenario could take years and years. What I think this really is, though, is a reflection of our larger feeling in the public. Lots of folks in the public, around 82%, are unhappy with the cost of drug prices, right? We have lots of folks that are generally unhappy with the cost of healthcare and access to healthcare. And I think what this EO does is really speak to this larger unhappiness. Now, are the details available here? Is this going to actually address it the way that it's saying it's going to address it? TBD, but not enough details to support that.
Well, but is there another way to do? I understand that. I think it's a valid point. A lot of people would think it's a valid point. But do you say something as simple as, see them over there? They're charging X. I want you to charge. That seems very simplistic and a little ham-handed. What is there another way to deal with this?
So I think where the real opportunity here lies, and hopefully we'll see, is a conversation, a real national conversation from the legislative perspective in the place where that's intended to make laws, which is Congress, in terms of how can we legislatively make changes in order to be able to better regulate the costs of drugs? How can we control our drug costs, similar to what we've recently started doing with Medicare negotiations? Might we be able to have a conversation now around private pharmaceutical industry?
You think that's going to happen?
I'm hopeful that this will spark a positive conversation in that way.
All right, well, we will see if it will. Swapna Reddy, again, ASU College of Health Solutions. My goodness, so much going on in the health field. It's good to have you here to help explain it.
Sure is. Thank you so much.
You bet.